2000 Cadillac Escalade. I'm going to show you something a little different here. I still haven't got into taking videos of no manifold setups like the guys who just top off refrigerant. Well, we're doing something a little. I ran out of refrigerant yesterday. I got a bus. Actually, they had two buses. It was a tour company, and totally drained out almost both of my cylinders, and I only had a little bit left in the cylinder last night. And this is the owner, not the owner, this is one of the managers of the shop, and I'm doing a favor for him. And so on my way home, I thought I had enough refrigerant to do his vehicle, but his vehicle takes a lot of refrigerant, 1,250 grams, and I came up 550 grams short last night. So one thing, I had another hose failure, and these things for me fail all the time. Many of you, these will last a little bit of time, but I go through them, they never make it past 2 months with me, because if I use them the amount of times they're off and on and always screwing, it wears out the seals inside that are in the barrel up here, not the seal inside where it seals here, but actually in the barrel. So just as I hooked this up this morning, you could see the water from where the refrigerant was shooting out back here, and so this condensated water on it. And as you look up, we have the fog coming in. So right now the humidity is like 95%, but it's only like 54 degrees. So that was that. So in this situation, you see I just have one hose coming off a tank right to the low side. I'm doing like the guys with the little cans, just using a hose, no gauges, gonna top off, possibly blow a compressor. No, I know exactly what's going on here. So I was exactly 500, I went all the way up to 550 grams short of my capacity. So I have a refrigerant container, I have a hose, and I just have one connector. I have it zeroed out. I know this is 20 grams. I put the glove up there, 25 grams, and it's hovering. There it goes, 20 grams. So now I'm just going to open up to the low side, just a little. I'm just pulling off the vapor. Where in the hell's my thing? So I'm just pulling off the vapor here. It's on the vapor side only, feeding into the low side. My tank is cold, so the pressure in my tank is cold. Low. It's a very low pressure because this tank was not in a heated area of my one. So yeah, this one I just pulled out this morning from my shop. That's not heated. I have one is heated, two shops not heated. So out of the two storage places for my warehouses, only one's heated. When I pull tanks out of there, they're cold. The other one's always at 70 degrees. So we're going in, we're at 160 grams. You don't want to rush too much refrigerant into the system, because what happens when, if this was hot, it was 70, 80, 90 degrees or something like that, and I tried to force it in there, I would have so much refrigerant going in, it would start washing the lubricant off the cylinders. And many guys don't know this. It's not just liquid that could wash the cylinders off, it's vapor too. If you get too much vapor all at one time, you can wipe cylinders. You don't want to be part of the problem, so you put it in slowly. So we got 260, and remember I told you before I had 550 short. So I'm just coming back here the next morning, and basically let's use the word topping it off, but to a very precise. This is accurate within 5 grams, this particular scale. That's why I like the scale. This scale is good for all newer cars that have real small charges hovering around a pound or less, because you want to be within 5 grams. On older vehicles made back in the early 2000s, 90s and stuff, where they're all around 2 pounds or more, you could be within 50 grams, which is about an ounce, and 50 grams is about an ounce and 3/4 for those guys who don't know grams. Those older scales were good. For the newer cars, like my old work vehicle, I had a Toyota Yaris. Its total capacity was 12 ounces. Okay, 12 ounces, and some of those big machines that you use, the older ones from the 90s and early 2000s, some of their accuracies were only plus or minus 2 or 3 ounces in either direction. Well, if you have a 12-ounce system and you're 3 ounces overcharged or 3 ounces undercharged, you'll definitely notice that on a hot day. Either way, you'll be going over pressure and you'll be heading up towards 400 psi on a hot day, and you'll have reduced cooling to the passenger. On 3 ounces under on a hot day, you'll have reduced capacity to a passenger. Let's go back here, feed a little bit more on. It is very foggy, overcast, and actually here in San Francisco, when it's foggy and overcast, it actually hurts your eyes sometimes. It's very bright everywhere. Instead of having instead of having sun hit you only from one direction, you can avoid it. You literally need sunglasses sometimes if you have sensitive eyes, because the brightness just hits you everywhere. It's like being on the ocean or like being on snow. And this is one, actually my brother did this one many years ago, and just recently he needed some work. Oh, that's right, I found a condenser on it. I think this is one I found a condenser on a couple years ago. He replaced the condenser and spent several more years after that. So as you see, this is going in really slow. You would not want to feed in liquid at all in this method. Oh, and another thing. Now this is a valve where you can have the hose here and you can tee in your vacuum pump right here. So you can literally vacuum out your line or vacuum out your system using no gauges. Now if you were using no gauges, this is the area when at the same time you have your scanner hooked up to your car, whether you're Toyota and you had TechStream, or you have Ford scanner or Nissan or whatever like that, you could read all your pressures and temperatures from the sensors on the newer cars, and you can literally see your high side and low side. You don't need gauges. If you have a scanner, you have gauges. It's that simple. Okay, we're at 520. Very cold in there. It's very cold out here. So since this is a cycling clutch system that uses low pressure to cycle it, since it's so cold outside, cold inside, when it cycles off, it stays off for a long time. It actually reminds me of a couple shops, body shops, of course. Okay, so we're at our 550. And we're off, we're full, that's it. Just because I ran out of refrigerant yesterday, I had to come back and do this. I wasn't gonna break out my gauges or anything. I just need a tank, a hose, and a very accurate scale. So he is now, I'm gonna use the word topped off. God, I hate that word. His system is back to the 1250 grams. And basically, if you know about these Cadillac Escalades, they're just a Tahoe, a Yukon. It's nothing more than a GMC Chevy. And Cadillac decided to throw their little trim package on you, charge you a buttload of money more, and it falls apart and breaks and has all the problems of a regular Ford or Chevy or Chrysler. A worthless turd that in probably a decade or two, our grandchildren are to go, Daddy, what was it like to drive a Ford or a Chevy back in your day when that company used to be around? Because if they keep going the way they're going, they may not last unless our government bails them out again with our taxpayer dollars. But that's it for now. I'll show you more about this setup and using software through the vehicle, through your scanner, looking at all the pressures and temperatures on the vehicle using no gauges, nothing more. I might even go single hose. I might even do the whole job with a single hose. Don't know if I'll do that or not. On some cars you can. You can literally, I'm getting into some area that will scare some people, but you could, if you really know what you do, you could evacuate and charge all through one hose, one fitting, just using a scanner, a vacuum pump, a scale, and a tank. It is possible to do it. You just have to really know what you're doing and pay attention to things. So here's the cheapest, most jerry-rigged way I could think of doing things, but with a very accurate scale. And normally, if I was going from scratch, because I already had, I was looking for a leak on this one, so I already had a full charge in this before, and then we drained it out, and I replaced the leaking Schrader valve. So just prior to this, last week, this system was completely charged, pressures, temperatures, everything was perfect. All I'm doing was, I'm coming back after the day I recovered it, I removed the Schrader valve, I replaced the Schrader valve, I came up 550 grams short, and so I'm just back out here in a day doing a one tank setup, one hose setup, and a scale, because I know exactly how much refrigerant I fell short yesterday. That's the only reason I'm doing this. But there is a way to do it with one tank, one accurate scale, one hose, and a scanner. That's if your scanner shows all the sensors for air conditioning on later model vehicles. Earlier model vehicles, you can't do that on it. But if you have a new hybrid, a new electric car, some of the newer vehicles, they have pressure transducers that accurately read off the pressure. So, and that's why one of the things I say, gauges and manifold sets can become a thing of the past. They're not needed. See you guys on the next video. I wasn't set up, I wasn't planning to make this video, so I really didn't set up this quite the way. This is very jerry-rigged, but I have to show you the most jerry-rigged way I could think of doing things as close to accurate as possible. I'll show you later on the vacuum methods and hooking up the different valving so you could tap in with a vacuum pump. And you can use a smaller, cheaper vacuum pump, but as a demonstration, what I'll probably do when doing some vacuum pump tests to show you guys some cheaper vacuum pumps, if I could find a cheap one that actually works good, you can have a little 2 CFM vacuum pump or a 1.5 CFM. It will work. It'll just take a lot longer. So what I'll probably do is I'll probably hook up a vacuum pump on one fitting and a micron gauge on another fitting, unless I could tap into a sensor somewhere or something like that. And I'll actually show you how long a little 2 CFM vacuum pump will take to get the vacuum down below 500 microns compared to my normal rig that I normally use. You can do it, it'll just take much longer.